Question for me is, it's been like 2.5 years now that since the standard has been released. What has been the progress till now, or what is the challenge you see in terms of how the management or C-suites are adopting or are aware of this thing? Do you see? I mean, it has succeeded as much as you would wanted, or was there any kind of communication or plans? I mean, probably more from the official perspective, or an ISO body perspective. Do you have any? I mean, if it is possible to share anything on this, would be happy to.
Sure. Personally, I'm independent of the standard, right? If you look at the way a standards committee is constructed, it's a bunch of people who are recognized as, being experts in the field that are invited in as volunteers. Nobody gets paid on the technical committees of the ISO standard, and they are there as representatives of their national standards association. So in my case, I'm Standards Australia, their representative, who is sitting as a volunteer on the ISO committee. And sometimes we're even paying our own way to be, to attend these meetings. And sometimes the local authority, depending on how financial they are, may actually cover your cost. So, that you're not paid. You're there to voice. The reason why I joined the standards committee was I felt I had knowledge to add, and I'd done work for Standards Australia before, and as a volunteer, and I knew that Australia didn't have a representative on that international standards committee. So I approached them and say, look, it's important that Australia has a voice. We need to bring an Australian perspective into this standard. And of course, all of the other members of the committee are all in the same boat. They want to bring a voice to that standard, and those voices collectively, then generate a high quality document that is very helpful to other people coming in. There are people who talk against it, of course. They say, well, you can't standardize knowledge, you can't force people to do things in particular ways. But that's not what ISO is trying to do. It's trying to give you a foundation to build from in a way that will suit you and your context.
Okay. So again, I think I had 2-3 questions associated. No, I understand ISO as an organization, they do not promote knowledge management standard as such, right? Is it true, or so again, it depends on us as a practitioners to kind of, show the value to the management and top management and see, how at least there's some book to give to them and say, okay, this is what is needed. I mean, so how do you see that, happening? Do you think it has happened as much as you would have seen happening, or do you think we have a long journey to make roads?
I think there's a huge journey for most organizations in the world to be able to bring themselves to be compliant with ISO 30401. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that any organization that commits to demonstrate that they are performing to that standard will improve the performance of their business. I have no doubt about that in my mind. There are many companies that don't even know how to spell KM. There are many companies that have no interest in standards, and that's okay. Let them do what they do. And if they think they're doing things very well, but I would argue that, if they looked at, the basic components of the standard and they looked at what they're doing now, I'm almost certain that they could probably find that they're going to get some improvement by being disciplined enough to demonstrate that. Now, even if they don't go for certification, it's only the ones that can get some sort of commercial advantage that would bother with that. But even if you're not interested in that, you're just interested in doing what you're doing, and it's not part of your marketing campaign to get more clients, it's all right. Yeah, it's good. They're important parts of our lives. Even if you're not interested in that commercialization, there is value in just reflecting on, are we doing that, and are we doing it well? Could we do it better? And I think that
Sorry.
from a, do I think that people progressed well in KM so far? No, no, I don't. But, you know, there's many things that influence that. ISO are not the best marketeers in the world. They're a technical organization, right? And that's not a criticism of them. They write standards, publish them, and sell them. You know, they're actually a very lean organization. None of the experts in the fields that they publish standards on work for ISO. They're all volunteers who work on the committees. You know, ISO basically have an infrastructure that enables groups of people to come together to write something that ISO believes will create value. And then ISO then sells that document. So they don't really market it very well. But organizations like BSI do that much better. Like, for example, next month, BSI are starting a series of training sessions about the standard and what it can bring and how it can help. You know, and you know, people who go along to that will get to that first day or maybe even the second one, you know, to say, oh, I'm now more aware. I now know how this can help me. I now know. So, you know, they're using Ron Young, who was another member of the standards committee, but there are plenty of other experts around who are now starting to, you know, share their knowledge with people and provide ways of learning about the standard. So we need more people doing that. The pandemic is really getting in the way. You know, if you look at ISO 9001, it took several years before organizations, you know, really started to adopt it. But the standard and awareness of quality in organizations and in product and service really improved when people really started to do that. Of course, some people were, you know, painting over the cracks and, you know, pretending to be high quality when they weren't. But they were soon found out as well, you know, and that sort of thing fell apart. When people started taking it seriously, things really improved. And I'm sure the same will happen with KM in time, but it takes time.
No, I think that's really very, very good to hear, because it's been like 20, 25 years now. We didn't really had any body of knowledge. The standard of ISO is the first body of knowledge and officially globally accepted, you know, body of knowledge. I mean, you know, that is one. At the same time, the only unicorn we got out of knowledge management, I might, if I quote, I should not, you know, I don't mean I am endorsing Microsoft, but the SharePoint got the biggest pie out of knowledge management wave, and few other smaller, you know, ecosystem around it. But other than that, the pure KM, you know, businesses or consulting and the frameworks did not get that kind of, you know, the kind of push and the global recognition. Of course, the Mike Award is one thing, and, you know, Caro is a new one. And apart from that, I think, yeah, right.
And I think you're making a really important point here. Thanks, Santosh. If you look at, you know, what business can do, what business is good at is packaging something up and selling it, right? Now, whether it's, you know, you put sugar and water and bubbles and sell it as soft drinks, or you take, you know, ingredients of food and sell it as something that tastes really good, or you take knowledge and you package it up. But how do you package up knowledge? Because what you really have to do is to pack up people's insights and conversations and reflections. But what you can package is, you know, the tangible components. And this is one of the arguments we had in several circles in the ISO committee, that, well, you know, what are we really saying here? You know, we can measure the tangible elements, but it's really hard to measure the appropriateness of the intangibles. How effectively is your community of practice working? That's a really important question from a knowledge management maturity point of view, right? But, you know, in a standard, you can't really, you know, send an auditor out and in a couple of days, they can measure that very accurately. You've got to take subjective judgments about these things. So in a requirement standard, you can't really put them in, but they're the things that are most important. So, you know, the reason why knowledge management had an initial push in the late 1990s and early 2000s is because a lot of people perceived there were elements that you could sell. And that was, you know, packaging up SharePoint or a whole bunch of techniques, you know, and it was about taking stuff and putting it into tools, right? But, you know, is that part of knowledge management? Well, of course, you know, but it's not the whole thing. but it's a saleable thing. And what happened is, you know, the knowledge management movement got sort of biased down that, you know, capture. But actually, if you think about it, the whole capturing of knowledge and documenting it and sticking it into tools is the cost side of the equation. Where the value side of the equation comes out is when people say, I wonder if we know about this. Well, how would I know? Well, I'll do a search in maybe SharePoint or whatever the tool happened to be. And if that search can connect me with the person who knows, and then I can have a conversation, that's so much better than finding 2,000, you know, documents in 26 seconds or 0.26 of a second. So people, but that other element's not really saleable. And that's why, you know, KM has really got a bit sidelined.
Indeed.
And the real thing is about the conversations like we're having now and the reflections that people have when they listen to this podcast. They go, oh, wow, you know, maybe who I should be connecting to is this. They are all important parts, but they're not saleable, packageable parts that big business can sell to someone else. And that's why we don't have the emphasis that we have.
Indeed, I think I really appreciate, you know, you putting this whole context of technology and the evolution of technology and how it has digested the knowledge movement and knowledge management movement. And now, you know, it's kind of, again, the good thing is, again, knowledge management phoenix, I think, again, it has come out rising from the ashes with the standard. I think if the standard gets established, I feel there's a whole new ecosystem formation happening around the standards. I mean, technology could exist, consultants and their framework could exist. The KROs, the multiple KROs, training and academic. There's a whole new ecosystem which can evolve because it has to cater to multi industries, multi domains, and, you know, knowledge management is not specific to a simple, you know, startup or a major MNCs or, you know, fortune companies only, right? So how I see is, I mean, knowledge management with the standards should evolve into much bigger, it should play much bigger role in creating jobs and creating values to the organization. That is one thing which I see with this, you know, because, I mean, probably as an, you know, working group member and as an just an audience, you know, I'm no way connected to any of this group or any of this whole network, but as an audience, as a knowledge management practitioner, when I pulled down the document and read the whole thing, I actually I was a strong critic as well, you know, when I saw that. And I thought, oh, KM is, because I'm a believer of KM is a free flowing, it's like a water, you put in any container, it will take the shape. Then I read it. Then actually what you're giving is, you know, how to build that mold, whatever shape you want to build, your knowledge can fit into that shape. I think that's what I really, that's what I thought it's creating value. And I did apply it to some of my systems and processes in my own company, and I was able to see the results. So that's why I thought, okay, yeah, why not? I mean, you know, if somebody is coming to the field and they want to know about knowledge management, all they have to do is just read the knowledge management standard and take the first step without so much of things material in the internet, so many things talking about this is knowledge man, this one. I think if you have to kind of, you know, really see independently, just take the standard, look at the standard, then whatever you want. I mean, there's a lot of facilitation, there's other facilitation, you know, experts, practitioners, system tools, all the things you can connect later, but standard should be your first step. I think I would say this is one of the important, you know, landmark document which has come out. That's how I see. I mean, from a knowledge management student, and I would see as it is a landmark, you know, development of producing a standard. Again, I'm just sharing my own view with you.
I completely agree with your point of view. I mean, you imagine, you know, if you're a new person, you're kind of interested in knowledge, you kind of heard of it, maybe you've read a couple of articles, and if you'd be thinking, wow, there's so much stuff. There's, you know, masses of journal articles, there's books, and you say, like, where do I start?
Yes.
Go to the 10 elements of the standard and think about how you can deliver on those 10 things in an integrated way. And you'll find that you've got a wonderful foundation to do real value for your organization. Now, no other document does that, you know, because I mean, you know, like you see in this room, you know, I've got, you know, probably 100 books on knowledge, written by all sorts of people, and they're all wonderful things. But, very few of them will have, here are the basic steps to get you going. And since the standard, there have been a few people, I mean, your own publication, Chris Collison's work on, sort of the cookbook, and, these things are, simple, pragmatic ways in which you can take these 10 components and start to integrate them, and it's a fantastic thing to have something as concentrated as that to work on, to make sure that they're integrated, and not only integrated with each other, but to be integrated in the same components of other knowledge management systems that you've got in your organization, because you want to connect to what already exists, not have something that's completely independent. So you can connect to the occupational health and safety standard, you can connect to the environmental standard, and you can bring them together in a way that the knowledge flows through all of those as well. Now, that to me, to be able to simplify it to that standard is brilliant, right? I'm trying to write this new book, and I'm at like, sort of 12 chapters and 50 pages per chapter. And it's like, how do I make it more simple? And then I look at the standard, I go, isn't that wonderful?
Indeed.
I wish we could simplify it,
Totally. No, in fact, maybe I have a last question, though I would want to, I have like so many questions prepared, but I'm not able to reach so far. But I want to really ask one question more from an CEO or CXO perspective, as an again, a creative frictional question. Today I have a company. I have a right people who are training people. They have knowledge retention happening. They're planning all the knowledge retention. I have HR who are building the culture, and they're having the right policies and taking care of the employee welfare and bridging the gap. Then I have IT team who are doing great IT system, and they are doing a lot of collaborative software systems. Everything is there. With all this thing, why I need knowledge management system?
To recognize, it's a great question, by the way, but to recognize that you have connected all of the dots. You can describe it and you think that they're connected, but if I've got a great IT system and I've got a great community of practice, but are the community of practice using the IT system in the most effective ways? Is the IT system supporting your leadership to understand how to create, not just to capture knowledge, but to understand how you are creating new knowledge and how that new knowledge is actually informing your next strategy cycle? I mean, if you get knowledge management right, the knowledge is informing the strategy, not the other way around. Because you've got the people working in the business at the coalface of the business, really knowing, all those nuances as to what's going to happen next, right at the coalface of development. Well, the executives don't know that. They're up, sort of somewhere else. They're looking at other things. They don't have the time to understand that. Imagine if you could condense all of those new insights. The executives know what they knew when they were at the coalface, but they haven't been there for 10 years. So how do you, feed that new knowledge up? And new knowledge is happening so quickly now. I mean, you look at all of these apps, they update every night. There's something new coming, something new. So things are changing so quickly. What have you got in place between your communities of practice, your knowledge systems, your leadership, your continuous improvement, the way that you're assessing? How is that working to get the flow upwards to inform, so that the flow back down is a prioritized set of strategies? It's the connection between them all that the standard gives you that organizations don't get. They work in silos. I hope that answers the question.
No. This is the most important question, which I think are going to be asked again and again, multiple times around the world. I think you have given a very good answer to it. And I think if they really understand the depth of what you said and they can see the value, I think knowledge management standard, every organization would adopt to it. Because I feel in next 3 or 4 years, knowledge management standard should become one of the important drivers in every organization. In that way, with the pandemic and post-pandemic future, the companies will be much well equipped from the knowledge management, knowledge infrastructure perspective as well. So
just let me add to that. So I know we need to wrap up, but I think you're making a really important point there. I think what will happen is that the organizations who are doing this, whether they're doing it formally or informally, whether they're doing it to get a certification to the standard, or they're reading the standard to say, hey, we need to spark up on this, or we're not connected here. The organizations that do that and do that consciously through engaging across the organization in really good conversations about whether or not we're leveraging our knowledge and whether we're doing that effectively, they will survive. The ones that don't do it are going to get left behind, become less competitive, and they will not survive. Unless they're really lucky to have a particularly niche market somewhere, they're just not going to make it. So we'll have, Darwinism, right? Sort of evolution, the survival of, actually, they talk about Darwin saying, it is not the most intelligent nor the strongest that survive, but the ones most adaptable to change. What drives your adaptability to change? Making sure that you're capturing and growing your knowledge over time. That's what the standard does for you.
Beautifully put. I really loved what you said. I think just as any organism developed fang or wings or claws, so organization needs to be resilient and open up all its organizational intelligence and adopt. I think that's beautifully put together. And to be very honest with you, I would want to continue this segment more, but we might have to stop for today. Probably in future again, we have I have a lot of questions, but however, if time permits and whenever you're free, probably we could meet after post pandemic. Maybe I could personally walk into your place and
Sure.
take an interview as well. I really enjoyed learning great deal from you, and also your perspective of inside what the ISO working committee, how you see from the absorption adaptation of knowledge management standards is really eye-opening, and it is going to help in greater ways than we think. Thank you very much. And I just received the author copy of my book.
Oh wow, congratulations. That's really impressive. Now, I have read your book as a pre-read, and there's a lot of really good information in there, stuff that would really help people to come to understand the connected between the elements, and also ideas on how to get started. So that's a really helpful. We need more resources like this that can really help people to get going.
Yep. Thank you very much. And you will be getting I will get the book posted to you for your reference. Once it's published, officially announced, I will share with you as well. So thank you again.
It will take pride of place. You can't possibly see, but all of that row there is all knowledge management books. And my new one, I'll get my new one, Becoming Adaptable, out to you as well. So it's not quite finished yet, but I'm getting very close now.
Yeah, but I want to just put one request and stop the session today. I am really incredibly curious about your organizational zoo, the whole concept, the whole forest. Probably we should delve into it more deeply and understand the psychology and how did you develop the whole concept sometime, maybe
Sure.
in the future. Yeah.
It's a really important thing, because, as I said, if you really want knowledge flow, you've got to get people interacting with people, right? Now, tools and processes really support that, and they make it more efficient, no doubt. They enable you to do it virtually, which, it's harder to do, as we're using a tool now to share knowledge, yeah? But that's why the human behavior element is so important, and that's why I did the zoo. But like you said, we'll talk about that another time.
Sure. Thank you very much, Arthur. And what a session it was. We completed 1 hour 15 minutes. I never got to know. I think this was I would rather call it a rapid fire round.
All good. My pleasure.
Yeah.
I hope that your members and listeners just get value out of it, and if they've got questions, have them send them through, and maybe that's another conversation another time.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much again. Yeah, have a great day.
Okay, you too. Bye bye. Thanks.